Some developers become senior in 3 years, while others get stuck for 10. It's not because they don't know how to code, but because they're optimizing for the wrong things. But there's a way to not end up like them. The 5 areas I'm about to break down for you come from published leveling frameworks from companies like Google, Amazon, Meta, and Spotify. And even if you're not in big tech, these dimensions still apply to you. I'm actively building towards senior using this rubric, and I'm documenting what actually moves the needle. If you're on the same path, subscribe and let's run it together. The first thing companies look for when they are promoting someone to senior isn't code quality. Code quality is assumed at the senior level. What they truly look for is ownership. If they can't depend on you to own features end to end, they don't consider you senior yet. You should be able to take a feature and be responsible for all its technical aspects. To make this clearer, let's see how each persona thinks in different scenarios. Junior, I finished my ticket. Senior, did this actually solve the problem? Junior, the spec says X, so I'll implement X. Senior, the spec says X, but are there risks we should flag before shipping? Junior, the bug wasn't introduced in my change. Senior, even if I didn't cause it, am I helping making sure it doesn't happen again? You don't need the senior title to start acting as a senior. So here are 3 actionable steps you can start applying today to move in that direction. Number 1, proactively clarify vague problems. If requirements are unclear, do the necessary work to clarify them. Don't depend on someone else to do that for you. Number 2, think past done. Even if you're not the one implementing the logging and rollout plan, think what happens after you merge your code. And number 3, close the loop. Follow up. Did it work? Did the metrics change? Did we learn anything? Once you own features end to end, you're now responsible for the design of the system and its architecture. That's why skill number 2 is system design. You must be able to take architectural decisions and be responsible for them on the long run. You can't just think about your code anymore, you have to think about the system. These things includes thinking about what happens at scale. Do we have performance bottlenecks? Is the system available as the business requires? Etc. This is why senior interviews at Google, Amazon, Meta, and Spotify include system design. They already assume you code. What they're testing is judgment under ambiguity. They want to know, can we trust this person to make decisions that won't hurt the business 6 months from now? Now, you might be in a position that doesn't allow you to take those decisions yet, but here are 3 things you can do to practice. Number 1, for every feature you work on, write down the architecture you chip, even if no one asked you to do so. Number 2, reverse engineer major decisions that were taken in your codebase. Ask, what problem were they solving? What trade-offs did they accept? What constraints existed? And you can even ask the seniors or architects in your team. And finally, number 3, when you face a decision where you want the senior or the architect's opinion before going into the discussion, try to think about it by yourself. For example, you might say we're choosing speed over scalability and that's because of X. Then check what will the architect or senior say. The next one is super important and often missed by many. But before we get into that, if you're on the road to seniority and you would like more valuable content like this that you can benefit from and start applying, I share valuable insights in my free email newsletter. So if you're interested, the link is in the description below. Now let's proceed. The third skill is technical leadership and influence. What does that mean? Let's tackle them one by one. Technical leadership means you're the one who sets the standards the team relies on. What most developers miss here is that you don't have to lead on all the aspects of the software. For example, you might only focus on software architecture, system boundaries, design principles, etc. Once you pick a field, leadership looks like this. You study the problem space deeply, you evaluate patterns, trade-offs, and past failures, you propose a clear approach and explain why it's the best one. For example, you might propose a software architecture you should follow and why it's the right one we should use. That's leadership. Influence is what makes it stick. Influence is how seniors help junior developers understand why decisions were made, explain how the business context shapes the codebase, translate abstract best practices into concrete everyday practices. A senior doesn't say, follow this architecture. They say, here's how this fits into our system and how it breaks if we don't do it this way. Also, they review code not to nitpick, but to protect the standards the team agreed on. But good ideas don't matter if they stay in your head. That's why the fourth skill is communication. But here's why this one is tricky, and not as easy as you might think. Senior communication isn't about talking more, it's about converging faster. It's easy to get lost in endless meetings discussing things both relevant and irrelevant, and leaving the meeting without a clear direction. As a senior, your role is to get better at this. You should learn how to guide conversations toward faster conversion. Not only that, but you should ensure that the final decision that was taken, first, it works, it doesn't fall when the system scales, and it respects the code quality standards set by the team. If you have any real experience, you know that not all stakeholders you work with are easy to deal with. Some of them may insist on their ideas too much. Others may not give you the time even to explain your ideas in the meeting. You have to be quick and efficient and reach an agreement in a very limited time. And you won't always be talking to developers who understand the problem as deeply as you do. Sometimes you might not even be talking to developers. So you have to learn how to talk to each one differently using different terms and different abstractions of the problem. Finally, you must master writing, not only talking. You should learn how to document your alignments and your decisions so that anyone can read them clearly without you having to be there. Definitely you can start practicing all of that even if you're not senior yet. Now here's the final skill that differentiates a senior engineer from a junior developer. A senior engineer won't always only do what they are asked to do. They make sure the work is worth doing. That's why the final skill is called business impact. This doesn't mean pushing back on everything. It means not blindly implementing unclear or illogical requirements. Let's take this day-to-day example. A product manager might say, we should support exporting data into Excel. A senior asked, but who asked for this? Is anyone blocked from paying because it's missing? Can support handle the few requirements manually? After several questions and discussions, they might conclude that only 3% or 2% of the users actually need this. And the senior might clarify that in their case, this might cost a lot. So the result becomes launch without exporting into Excel and handle the few requirements manually. Also, seniors are allergic to over-engineering. Not because they don't know advanced stuff, but because complexity has a cost. More bugs, slower onboarding, harder maintenance. They think about cost and risk before code is written. If you're serious about becoming a senior and you're on the path like me, I'd love to have you along for the journey. Subscribe so that you don't miss the practical tips and frameworks I'll be sharing to help you get there. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.